it is cheaper and quicker to do something right the first time than have to go back over and do it a second time. This very well could be a education in self-discipline and mastery. Anyone that's raised children know the dynamics of this. Children, as a rule, will do everything they can to get out of work. Now, if they had just taken the time to do it right the first time, they actually would have saved themselves time and effort. What does this possibly have to do with polishing? Well, two things. One, if you're the customer, as in you're the car owner and you're looking to have your car polished. And secondly, if you're a detailer coming into the equation after a car has been polished by somebody else. And that somebody else often is someone that does not have the discipline or patience to do it properly. So as a car owner, and I'll add another proverbial adage, which is, as a rule, we get what we pay for. So when it comes to car polishing, yes, it is both an art and a skill. And there's much more than just how to polish a panel without producing swirl marks or leaving swirl marks. It's does the guy behind the buffer have the patience and discipline to tape it off properly and go through all the steps so that while he's producing a nice shiny car, he's not actually creating a negative effect, which is he's leaving compound and polishes in every seam, nook, and cranny. So these are not ideal working conditions. As a mobile detailer, I have to be very flexible. It's like the palm tree in the storm. I've got to be able to bend and sway and adjust based on my environment. So what I want to illustrate is this car was buffed by a body shop. Now, if you're a body shop owner, you're probably going to want to tune out because I'm likely going to piss you off. Because as a rule, 95% of body shops just suck, period. They just suck. From the prep work, to the paint work, to the finish work, to the polishing, they just suck. You know why? Because they are controlled by the insurance company. Most claims are processed through your insurance. They're the big gorillas in the room that control really everything. Now you think you're the car owner, and therefore the body shop wants to make you happy so that you come back again and again and again. Well, a couple factors of A, as a car owner, you likely don't know the difference between good body work and bad body work until you get a guy like me that does know the difference. And now I've got to be the rude awakening to your world and say like, wow, they did some crappy ass work. Secondly, because you don't know the difference between good and bad body work, they can get away with a lot of it. And so they will represent, as in they, the body shop owner or the body shop itself, will represent that yes, you're the customer, you're always right. We are here to serve you and make you happy. But if you don't even know the difference between good and bad body work, how do you know? And there's so much pressure from the insurance companies to keep their rates down, and you can call it manipulation, you can call it like legal extortion. There's many ways I could label that. The point is that body shops are between a rock and a hard place. You've got a very ignorant customer base, and you've got this big gorilla in the room called insurance companies that really dictate the moment. You just don't know it. So in this case, I am the detailer, this is my customer, these working conditions essentially suck. While I can tweak virtually any product, compound, polish, wax, to work in the sun, it's going to be increasingly more difficult on a darker colored car, in this case, solid black. No metallic, solid black. So once again, this is where I have to be flexible. But what I'm doing is I'm polishing this car. The customer wants to save this car and keep it long term. But I know the limitations of how old this car is, which is like 18 years old, how many times it's been polished previously or approximately. The latest time was when he took it to the body shop and they got old, the worker bee back there with the rotary buffer, and he just went to town on the car. Left all kinds of swirl marks, left compound crammed in every nook and cranny, stained the black trim. So me now coming in, and this is me as a detailer and you as a car owner, we're on the same, it's the same coin, we're just on different sides. A lot of it has to do with end results and money. So in order for me to fix this, it's more than just polishing the paint, because now I've got to fix the other knucklehead that buffed it before I am working on it. I've got to fix his stuff first before I can fix the paint and do it properly. Time out. Honor, I request a sidebar. So sidebar, all you body shop owners or guys that work in a body shop, save your breath. I get it. You're all gonna insist how your body shop is different. Well, if in fact it is different, then why don't you just put a description under the comments and say, hey, check out our body shop. Don't try to put a link to your website there though, because it's not gonna work. Just spell it out. So, because I know I'm gonna get all kinds of pushback from body shops and whatever, but the reality is they still suck. But I know they're working within a lot of constraints. So here we are with this car again, and as I've been working on it, more and more things reveal themselves, and this kind of goes into how badly body shops can suck. But once again, they're working with constraints also. So this emblem, they had to take this emblem off in order to paint, because they repainted this vent that actually raises and lowers. Now I know that they polished this, and when I was scrutinizing the paint, I could tell that they in fact, based on the sanding marks that were still visible, I knew that there's no way they could do that and still have this emblem in place. So my guess is that they took this off, buffed it, or wet sanded and buffed it, put the emblem back on. I did not know for sure until I verified with the customer. That was my guess. So this is one of the nuances. I do a lot of emblem removal, but I also do replacement. I replaced this S about 6 years ago. And I remember specifically doing my research to figure out exactly how the correct placement of this was. Now you could say, well, what's there to guess, Darren? It's got a very precise cutout for it. Well, the problem is if you align that exactly with the cutout, which is what they did, then this tip of the S actually butts up against the arm of the A. And then you've got this gap here. So there's more to just sticking an emblem on than just peeling off the tape and slapping it in place. There's supposed to be a subtle little gap right in between here so that you have the same gap here as you do here. But now we don't. So that was also an indicator that they jacked this up. Now, knowing that they actually took this off and they had a clean slate to work with, after they put it on, there was still polish and wax stuck inside this emblem that I'm still having to clean up. And I think, well, shoot, if you're gonna take it off, how is it you don't get it perfect? Then you put it on, I don't know, and use some kind of spray wax that's not gonna leave residue, whatever. So let's go around, and here what they did also is they saw this scratch. And I'm going to try to reveal. Here is the scratch that goes like this. Now, if you look in the right lighting, you can see where they burned through the clear in a patch right like that. And I'm going to move the camera around in hopes of trying to capture this patch. I'm going to put my finger right in the middle of the patch so you can see what happens. I think it shows right there, is that it changes the appearance of the color coat underneath if you in fact burn through the clear coat. Also in working, and this has to do with cleaning up after someone's mess, is they may do damage you can't fix or polish away. So right here we have yet another scratch, too deep to wet sand and polish away. But what they did is they buffed this. It looks like this is a solid smooth panel, but it actually dips in right here and creates a character line or a high point right along here. So the buffer caught this and burned the edge off of that section right there. So it's more than just trying to clean up the mess that they did by getting polish or compound crammed in every nook and cranny. There'll be flat panels where there's some polish residue that is miserable to get off. Not all polishes are created equal, and as a rule, the longer the polishes have been left on the paint and have been burnished, look up that word if you don't know what it means, burnished onto the paint, it's like trying to get cement off almost of the paint. It's miserable. So there was so many spots on this car where they had burnished the compound onto the paint that was just created an added level of difficulty in trying to work on this car. So that's my little sidebar. Let's get back to the rest of the video. So you'll notice that I'm taping this area off. For example, I'm dissecting this car section by section, which is always the preferred method. You can't just look at a car as an entire entity. You can, but you've got to dissect it into sections. So for example, I have so far on this car alone used 3 different types, actually 2 different types of tape, 3 different widths. Why? Because I want to get very precise. So each width will be the exact width or the most appropriate width for the job, as in this moment, the job that I'm trying to perform. What I want to do, like on the Porsches, they have this often, either it's a rubber gasket or it's a felt rubber-esque gasket in between here. I want to protect this from cramming polish in there, and I want to protect the gasket from getting chewed up or wrecked or stained up by the compound or polish. Same with this seam here on the Porsches. If you come back here, and this is where I dissect it section by section. I've already worked on this pillar here, so I don't need this taped off, but now I'm moving from here over to that area. So you'll notice that the whole rear window gasket is taped off. This little interface seam gasket, it's actually made up of 2 gaskets with a plate that's painted. This is the sunroof gasket, so you can see that it's fully protected. But I had to spend probably let's say this took me a half an hour to do the paint correction on this half of the roof. Hypothetically, half an hour. I had to spend 15 minutes just cleaning up the knuckleheads work that worked on this prior to me, because there was compound and polish crammed everywhere. It was all over the gasket. So I have to clean that up first, because if I polish it first, then try to clean up, I'm likely going to abrade or scratch the areas that have just been polished. So you've got to take things in the proper sequence. So the lesson, once again, same coin, 2 different sides. It is always cheaper and quicker to just do it right the first time. And that's where inexperienced, younger, not to disparage all you young bucks out there, but that's where wisdom comes in. As you learn, as you get older, it's like, you know what? This is where patience really does pay off. It's like, I know, it's almost like this. I have a paintless dent guy that taught me, he said, what he goes with is the longer it takes, the quicker he'll actually get it done. And that's a little confusing because it's a complete contradiction. But what it means is he knows that the more patience he applies, and patience as a rule is going to mean things take longer than you want them to, because we're on an overstimulated instant gratification society nowadays. So we want everything like this. Well, perfection and performance doesn't come like this. It requires patience and discipline. So that's where, you know, it's like, okay, I go with the mindset that this is just going to take however long it takes, and I'm just going to go through all the proper steps to see it through the right way the first time. So as the customer on the other side of that coin, it's just like, oh wow, suddenly I take it to a detailer and the guy wants to charge me $500, $600, $700 to do paint correction. Now my butt just watered up, and do I really want to pay that? Maybe I'll go to the car wash and get it done cheaper, but you know, trade-offs, I accept that. Well, in reality, you could actually be signing on to something that you're not aware of, and that is, as time moves forward and that wax and compound reveals itself, as it dries more and more, you'll realize, oh my gosh, perhaps I sign on to a much bigger problem that's going to be even more costlier to fix now, rather than just pay to do it right the first time. So that's a lesson. Many of you have heard it before. It's just that, do you have the ability to apply it into your world, regardless of which side of that coin you're on? You're the detailer over here trying to perform the job. You're the customer over here wanting to pay for the job and get the results out of the moment. So as a detailer, you can't just price a car and say, oh, I'll charge you $500 to paint correct your entire Porsche. Well, that's an oversimplification because you don't know what it's actually going to take to do it right. Are you going to have to fix someone else's work that was hasty or didn't have the skill set or discipline or patience to do it properly the first time before you can even paint correct? So that's a big, massive variable, or it has the potential to be a big one. And big, I mean as in money, as in your time. So if you're not getting paid for your time, you're not being profitable. So that's my little lesson for the day. Tune in next time. If you like what you see, thumbs up. If you don't like what you see, thumbs down. I don't care. And leave me a comment. I actually do come in, and you guys are funny. You keep me on my toes. So good job. I appreciate that. Until next time, over and out.